5 years after Crimea annexation, tensions remain. 5 years passed like one moment, and now these emotions come back to me, the joy, the great victory, said the Crimean President Andrei Babichev. The taking of Crimea was an emotive moment for the nation, and Putin's popularity shot up 20 points, to the mid-80s, in the aftermath, but it recently lost those points. This was said to have been. One could suggest that ratings don't matter much in a Russia whose president has 5 years left on a term that should, in theory, be his last, but plenty of people would argue with that. I think it does matter, said Eleonora Taforo Ambrosetti, a researcher at the IPSI think tank in Milan. A decrease in popularity means an increase in the willingness of the population to take to the streets and protest, and this is not something the Kremlin is used to and the Kremlin fears. There have been a scattering of demonstrations since the pension age was lifted. Over the weekend, several hundred took to the streets of Moscow calling for social and political change. The hundreds is not huge, but they were vociferous. This year we got a horrific pension reform, it is terrible, said opposition figure Sergei Udaltsov. Got new taxes, got new restrictions on simply criticizing the authority. Today a person will be held accountable for an insult against an official. Got dozens of cynical, insulting statements from the officials of various levels. The almost went nuts in recent months. Some worry Putin may look for another crisis to boost his standing. He has militarized the Crimean Peninsula in the 5 years that have passed. At a recent panel discussion about Ukraine at Chatham House, Colonel Vadim Skibitsk, "This is a threat for all countries in the Black Sea region," he said. Russian senior Viktor Bondarev. James Apathuri, Deputy Assistant Secretary General for Political Affairs at NATO, said that the annexation of Crimea is part of a pattern that began with Georgia and includes Russian intervention in Syria, but it was a game changer. Apathuri said at that same Chatham House talk, "It is also important to recognize that Crimea gives Russia a stronger platform to project force and political influence far beyond Ukraine and even beyond the Black Sea. It is using this enhanced military capability to project force into the Eastern Mediterranean, into the Middle East, and potentially elsewhere." NATO has spent the intervening years preparing to protect any further potential targets of Russian activity, and on the anniversary, the European Union countries reconfirmed they do not recognize the annexation, but the facts remain on the ground. Despite the enormous cost of integrating the peninsula, one estimate is it will cost overall $82 billion, and the political costs of getting kicked out of the G8 and being slapped with sanctions. The overwhelming majority of Russians still support the annexation of Crimea, according to a recent poll, but increasingly, they are indicating that their main preoccupation is economic growth and stability.
Raindrop, drop top, top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park, pot.